Have you ever come to the realization that sometimes we tend to make things harder than they need to be? Have you ever wondered why business is so hard sometimes? I got to say that early on, I was wondering why business was so hard. And I didn't realize that it's because I was making it harder than it needs to be. This is the first realization for me is when I realized that I'm actually the problem, I also realized that for some degree, I'm also the solution too. And it's
Right.
being willing to look at that and go, how am I making this harder on me? And that's what we're going to talk about here today. It's to really have the realization that if business is hard and you keep making it harder on yourself, it's going to be one of those things where inevitably you don't succeed. And in reality, that's what your brain is trying to get you to do. It's trying to make it so hard that you get uncomfortable, that you want to get back into your comfort zone. You want to get back into the old habits that you in. You want to get back in not having a business. You want to get back. And basically, it's going to try and sell you every single day on why you should quit, why it's too hard, why you don't know what you're doing, why you're confused, why you're overwhelmed, why you're anything. Because if it can do that, it could get you to believe that you don't have what it takes. But here's the truth. You're literally here on YouTube, watching this video, wanting to grow, wanting to learn from this. So that does not mean that this is you. This is an opportunity for you to tap into a different version of yourself and find out why you're really making this so hard. Because when we can understand why we're doing this, we can go down an entirely different path that makes it much easier. And that's what we're going to be talking about today. Now, what we're not going to be talking about is how to make it easy. The truth is, if business was easy, everybody would be doing it and everybody would be having success, which means nobody would be having success. So we don't want to make this completely easy, but at the same time, we also don't want to make it harder. So if you're ready to do that with us, you're ready to attack this idea, this belief that you continue to make business harder, then let's go. It's time to redefine leadership. Welcome to Modern Leadership, where we see things differently. Our channel is all about empowering entrepreneurs like you to achieve the next level of success in business and life. We believe that you can create a massive impact in the world without compromising your personal life or family time to do so.
We're committed to providing you with actionable tips and strategies weekly to make that possible. So if you're ready to become a modern leader and make a lasting difference in the world, consider subscribing. Turn on notifications and dive into our community. We want to thank you for being here because the world needs your leadership now more than ever. Let's go.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back. Welcome back. So Kurt was trying to get me to use the turntable here, but apparently the button wasn't working. He's still trying to teach me how to DJ, apparently. But we are super pumped to have you guys back here. Whether you're brand new to Modern Leadership, welcome to the channel. Super pumped to help you build a business you love, connect deeper with your family, and make your health and fitness a priority. For everybody who is a consistent member of the channel, subscribers, we appreciate you guys so freaking much. And of course, I want to give a shout out to our Modern Leadership Inner Circle, the people who are part of our YouTube program, who get closer access to us. And we're really going to talk about something really powerful at the end of this, where we're actually going to be guiding you through the process of sales, making more impact, which is something we're going to be doing in an upcoming workshop just for Inner Circle members. So we have Brenda here, Julie, Susie. So pumped to have you guys here and to have you as a part of this team. But we're going to dive into what we do to make business so hard. And Brenda, I actually saw you a few minutes ago on the life coach certification. What's going on, Brenda? So I guess my first question is and I just want to pass it to you is why, I know we talked a little bit earlier about why business is so hard, but when you think about some of the things that we have to overcome around this idea of business being hard, why, what are some of the main drivers of why business is so hard for people? What comes up for you?
I think sometimes it's because you don't think of yourself as someone who can actually run a business. So some of us are really ambitious and driven, and those kind of make the entrepreneurs, the natural entrepreneurs. But then there's a lot of us who just feel like we don't have what it takes maybe, or this is just kind of a really big endeavor. And I think that's kind of where it comes from.
Yeah, for sure. And you'll hear us talk a lot about this in today's training, but a lot of these kind of things that prevent us from actually stepping in is the stories that we tell ourselves, right? So Teresa was just talking about a story that you might be telling yourself of you're not like all the other entrepreneurs out there. which is crazy because I think just being an entrepreneur proves you're different than everybody else on the planet, including other entrepreneurs, right? It's like, it's totally different. But if you have this story that you're telling yourself that you're not good at being an entrepreneur because you were a police officer for 20 years, by the way, that's what I used to tell myself. I'm a police officer. I don't know how to sell. I don't know how to do any of that. And like, I would literally keep myself protected because if I can convince myself that that I'm like that, or that it's hard or whatever, it's very easy to get distracted, right? There's many other things that could be distracting you because it's very easy in business to make a lack of action or a lack of results mean something about you as a human. And it's not. It's just one huge science experiment. But any way that we can actually work against ourselves to make it so that we can quit and give up, that's literally what our brain's trying to do, is trying to make it harder. Now, here's the thing today. What we want to really talk about is the thing that we found personally, specifically me, in terms of how I was really making business harder versus like what I came to realize is that I was getting in my own way because I had this story that I had to really, it's like do it all, right? But when I think about like what was actually holding me back was the fact that I was spending all of my time trying to develop my weaknesses and very little time trying to develop my strengths. So I don't know if there was this misconception in my head that was basically telling me, Mark, you need to focus on your weaknesses because you're losing people in this area. Like, this is the thing you're struggling with. You need to focus on these things. And what it did is it actually stopped me from focusing on the things that I did really well, the things that I could take to the next level. And it was this really common misconception I hear a lot of times is like people are trying to grow their weaknesses rather than grow their strengths, right? So I guess that kind of like kicks us off with the first one is like, why do you think we focus on our weaknesses rather than our strengths?
Yeah, I think it's because we have limited time and energy. Oh, sorry. No, that's not right. I was going on to question 2. Sorry. So we're more focused on what's broken, wrong, or missing, right? We're focused on, okay, this is something that we need to fix. So I need to put all my energy and effort onto that. And I think the misconception is also that we can't have any weaknesses. So we have to work on that. And then what happens is that we don't focus on our strengths. Like Mark said, if you focus on your strengths, you can level up in that area. And then, of course, that becomes your superpower, right? Because if you really focus on something that you're already good at, then you can stand out among the crowds, right? But we still have that kind of like primal mind of, well, if I'm weak, then I'm not going to be able to do things. So I have to focus on those particular weaknesses, which is, not the best idea.
Yeah. 100%. When our brain can focus on what's broken, wrong, or missing, we actually create more of what's broken, wrong, or missing, right? We see how our shortfalls are, right? I mean, Brenda was talking about this, but I taught our life coach certification this morning, and it's crazy when somebody had personally lost 130 pounds, right? But they were talking about like all of the areas that they haven't been able to succeed in. And when you think about all the areas you haven't been able to succeed in, it'll actually throw you off track because you'll find all the evidence for when you haven't succeeded. And what's funny is like we have so many opportunities where we have succeeded and we can use those to lean into to get us to show up. And when she started talking about her 130-pound weight loss and how she saved herself and her life and her opportunity to be with her kids, she got all emotional and you could feel the energy change. And it's crazy. Like when you have a story like that, how if you remind yourself of the hard things you've gone through, you will like literally lean to it and it will transform your energy. Right. And that's the same thing here is when you're thinking about your weaknesses, what you're not good at. I don't know about you guys, but I'm not like, I can't wait to do that thing I absolutely hate and suck at. It's just going to be so awesome. I'm not like that. I'm like, oh my gosh. Right. And by the way, a little bit of my, I'll fast forward to a little bit of my strategy is like, I reach out to the guy below. His name is Kurt. I'm like, bro, can you do this? You totally crushed at this. And he's like, oh yeah, I love doing that. And I'm like, thank God, because somebody does. Right. And so being able to like find people like that is really, really powerful. But knowing that when your brain is trying to get you to focus on weaknesses, it's because it's like wanting to focus on what's broken, wrong, or missing. So you're going to manifest more of that. Now, one of the things that I really like to like really share in terms of an analogy to get you to really understand why this is such an important piece is because I want you to think about, let's say you have a weakness, something that you're trying to do, a skill or something that you're not really good at and you're level 3, right? You can invest in a program, you can invest in coaching, you can invest in learning that skill, you can put all your time and energy in there, right? And you can go from like a level 3 to a level 5. Okay. You're not going to go from level 3 to a 10. You can go from a level 3 to a level 5. And now you're like mediocre with what everybody else is. But what would happen if you were a level 7 in your strength and you went from a 7 to a 9? People would pay you millions of dollars for that because they want to work with people who are 9s, not necessarily people who are 5s. Mm-hmm. The crazy thing is, like when I heard John Maxwell explain this, he said 5s can lead a 4, a 3, a 2, or a 1. So anybody who's lower skill than that, a 5 can lead. But a 9 can lead anybody at the skill of an 8 and below. Mm-hmm. So when you just think about the value that you can bring, when you think about what are the skills that are like my most powerful skills and how can I utilize those, then you tap into that. And then you ask how you can outsource or get rid of or have somebody else do those other things. That is at a level 8 or a level 9. Like when I think about these videos, I'm pretty decent at like communicating, at doing videos, my energy. I would suck if I was the person who had to edit them. I would totally suck. And I would want to like punch my face out. Like I probably couldn't watch myself. Kurt makes it look like I actually know what I'm doing. He makes it look like it's Netflix show, right? And all these awesome intros that I mess up and he wants to punch me. But besides that, like it is a really great mixture because now we're all in our strength zone, right? And so there's times early on in my business that I didn't have a Kurt. And there were some things that I just had to do and I had to get by with it. Yeah. Honestly, thankfully I have Teresa because she's the creative type. So anything creative would go to her so that I didn't have to do it. But like as quickly as I could get those things off my plate, the better, because leaning into my strengths actually made me way better at that strength and make more people want to actually hire me and work with me because of my strengths. And trust me, I have plenty of weaknesses. Lots of them. You just don't see me working on them because I want to work on my strength and take it to the next level. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And it's not that you're not going to work on your weaknesses at all. I think that there is just kind of like a level that you work on them, because let's say Mark, for example, on YouTube, like he learned just enough about certain things related to YouTube that when, Kurt came along, then he can take over because that's his strength, but he knew just enough so that he can kind of understand some of the things, but that's not his strength. So he started to focus on his strengths. So it's not that you're just going to completely ignore your weaknesses. It's just that you want to make sure that you identify what your strengths are and put a lot of effort into those rather than your weaknesses.
This actually, let's fast forward to that question because there was a question about this. Is like, what's the ratio? Should you completely ignore your weaknesses? Because there's a lot of people who are like, well, there's a lot of people who are telling you you should develop your weaknesses because that's your blind spots, right? And if you increase that, then you can. So there is like I like to think about this as a ratio. It's really a ratio that I use in multiple different areas in sales and everything like that, even in time management. Yeah. It's the 80-20 principle, right? Yeah. So spending 80% of your time working on your strengths or in your strength zone and spending 20% of the time, whether it's developing, learning, thinking about some of your weaknesses, helping outsource those weaknesses, like that's where I found to be like the beautiful place. But what I saw I was doing is I was spending 80% or 90% on my weaknesses and 10% like on my strengths. And I'm like wondering, like, what's going on here? Why isn't this moving the needle? For me, leaning into coaching, for example. So coaching was one of those things where I was dabbling and I was doing maybe 10 to 20% of continuing to grow as a coach. And 80% was like marketing and sales and all of these other things, which are important, right? I just had them flip-flopped. When I went 80% into coaching, it developed me into the type of coach who now teaches a life coach certification, teaches our master coaches. And now I can spend some of that 20% on marketing and sales, but I also have a team who can help me do that. So I don't have to do that. I have a Josh to go, hey bro, what do you think about this? Because that is not my strength. And when I stay in my strength zone, I can become best in the world in that. And then I can find other people to kind of fill in those gaps because everybody else, there's other people who love those things, thrive in those things, and you want to keep them in that area. So
love it.
Really good question. Okay. Let's go to number 3, because I think we already hit number 2. And that is like having to do with identifying and leveraging your strengths, which led to a breakthrough or significant success. So do you have anything that kind of comes to mind? And okay, apparently you're going to ask me this question because Teresa,
he knows my nonverbal cues. So.
And I think all of the world knows your nonverbal cues.
Sorry.
Why don't you ask you that question then? Why don't you ask me that question then?
Okay. So Sorry. So can you tell us about a time in your life when identifying and leveraging your strengths led to a breakthrough moment or a significant success?
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm glad you asked that.
I
I'm
just came
definitely
up with
glad you
it.
asked me that. So this is something where early on I was trying to be the jack of all trades.
Mhm.
And Kurt will like really connect with this piece because I just want to be great at everything. And I'm like, I'm going to be great at everything. I'm going to be great over here and on social media and on a podcast and on a YouTube and on coaching and in this with health and fitness. And I was trying to be great at everything, which made me less than mediocre on all of it, right?
Mhm.
Because it's one of those things they say, if you chase two rabbits, you catch none, right?
Yeah.
And so I wasn't going all in with like that my strength, right?
Mhm.
Asking myself, like, what do I love doing? When the time feels like it passes, like in the blink of an eye, what are some of those things that I'm doing? Like, what do people come to me and go, Mark, like, can you help me with this? Right. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, that's so easy, right? We all have things in our life that's like that. And when I actually started to tap into that, that's when our business really started to take off. It was like, no more was it me trying to take everything and like become the best at everything that I was doing. It was me picking just a very few things and spending my time and attention there. Right. And I think what's amazing, and this is something that you can like really think about is when you think about like, let's say a skill, let's say YouTube, for example, right? Um, and it could be one of those places where you ask yourself like, what are my skills, right? What are some of the skills that are my strengths that I could bring to YouTube? So some people love this is called the talking head video, where we're literally just here having a conversation with you. Sometimes you're not doing that. Sometimes it's just you're the one who's filming and you're showing something or describing something or putting something together. Sometimes it's you like playing video games. I mean, how many gaming channels on YouTube, right? You're literally playing video games. So there's a million ways to do YouTube, but for some reason, when our brain thinks of YouTube, it's like, well, if I can't talk, if I can't speak, then I guess I can never be successful. You should probably go back and look at YouTube because there's a million channels that have nobody who's the face, nobody who's talking, even AI generated stuff, which I don't necessarily love, but there's so many other opportunities. And you could look at it through the lens of what is my superpower, right? Instead of going, well, she has a superpower of doing the dancing thing, right? And doing this thing on like, I should
What's
do that
that?
too, right?
Kind of
You,
move
you like that? You like that? Yeah. So it's instead of looking what everybody else's strength is and how they're doing it, ask yourself, well, okay, there's some universal principles there, but how can I do that in my strength zone? We have a lot of amazing coaches who are really powerful at the written word. One of them comes to mind, Tiffany. She's just joined the life coach certification. She is really great at communicating, and how she does it, like in the written word, is amazing. Like I feel like I'm reading a book. I feel like she should publish that book, right? And that's her strength. So she'd want to tap into that because that is her superpower, right? But maybe her superpower isn't being on audio or isn't being on video. You can always think about like, how can I use my superpower to make that thing that person's doing in my own way? And it's really powerful when you ask yourself a life coaching question like that, because you can always find some really powerful answers. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it does.
Thanks for
Yeah,
asking that again.
thanks.
Okay. So how can you identify your strengths? I wrote a few different questions that are down here. But if you get somebody to this point, they're like, okay, Mark and Teresa, you've sold me. I'm going to double down on my strengths. And then you get into the head voice of like, what are my strengths?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't have any strengths. Like I'm too old. I'm too young. I'm too pretty. I'm too ugly. I'm too this. I'm too that. All those kind of things. Josh is texting me 72 messages when I'm on the call. Like there's the head voice will come in, right?
Yeah.
And we want to instead ask ourselves, how can we actually think about like, what are some of those strengths? So what would you say?
One of the biggest things is think about what people ask you to do often. Like if people come to you and they ask you about something all the time that, whatever, like it's some type of skill, or maybe you are good at communicating and people come and like ask you like, hey, how do you do this? And look at that and see, okay, maybe this is the strength of mine because people come to me for this, right? Maybe you're a great chef, a cook or something, anything like that, that makes you think about like, what is it that people come to me for? Then that might be an indication of something to lean into.
I really like that one. And we have a couple more, but as you were kind of like talking about that, I actually just remembered back to being a police sergeant at LAPD. I remember that I used to have a lot of people who come to me, including my lieutenant, on how to like make hard leadership decisions and how to communicate that to other people. And what's crazy is like, I was that go-to person where they would come to me and they go like, hey, this person is like not doing what they need to do. What do you think is a good way that we could approach this? And I could share it with them without like offending them. And I used to like, I remember I used to like help like design a plan, a strategy, questions to ask, all that kind of stuff. And I didn't even realize that until Teresa just said that right now, because that kind of like is my strength. It's the whole, how do you lead people without offending them or getting them upset, and really doing the hard conversations, which a lot of people are a little nervous about doing it. Right. And so if you realize that people do that, people come to you and say, hey, can you help me fix my problem? Or can you help me through this? Or can you help me do that? Like technology, right? People like come, hey, can you help me like show me how to like use AirDrop on my phone or something like that? Like if you're that person, hey, can you teach me how to do this camera? Right? If you're that person, then maybe you can lean into that because that's maybe your strength. Maybe that is one of the strengths that you can identify and go, okay, that is my strength. And I think the second question would be like, do I like doing that? Because sometimes we have strengths where like, I absolutely don't want to do that. Like one of the things that comes up for me is like the whole health and fitness thing. Like we are very heavy into health and fitness and connecting it with family and all that kind of stuff. But I don't want to write macros. I do not want to write workouts, even though I'm a certified personal trainer from National Academy of Sports Medicine. I'm like, I don't even want to tell people about that, because then they're going to be like, oh, can you write me a workout? And that is like, for me at this point, is like, no, I don't want to write you a workout. That, right? I did have to go through that. That was the first phase of like, oh, people are coming to me because I lost 100 pounds. Yeah. So that was this must be my strength zone. But I actually didn't like teaching what I did because it was a lot of back and forth drama, a lot of head voices that come up when you're trying to lose weight. Right. So that's one of the great questions is you can ask yourself, like, what do people ask me about all the time?
Yeah. And you said, about leadership and being able to communicate really hard or starting those hard conversations. You still do that. And you develop that. Even if you didn't realize it back then, like you kind of leaned into that and you continue to develop that. And now, like, if you go back, like you probably will think of things, oh, maybe it shouldn't have been this way, but we grow, right? We grow as humans. So I think that even if you don't realize it now, it'll like come up, right? So just keep your eyes open, basically.
Yeah, it's a really great point, because that time I actually wasn't good at it. I was just better than some of the other people who were around, who were just completely nervous about what to say. But actually being put in that situation made me develop that skill. And I realized that it's a skill that I can kind of develop. Because here's the thing, guys. What we're also not saying is if you've never tried it before, it does not mean it's your weakness. It actually could be your strength. I mean, I came on YouTube. I didn't really know what I was doing. Thank goodness I have a team and some people to give me some guidance. And then I worked with like a couple different mentors and things like that. And now I'm doing pretty good with it, right? And so now I would consider it, this is my strength. But in the beginning, it wasn't necessarily like that. But it was one of those things where I wasn't trying to force my weaknesses. It was one of those things where I'm like, hey, I'm pretty good on video. And now it's just a matter of like packaging this up and finding other people who know how to package it up better than me. And I'll do this part and you do all that other part. And that's kind of like worked in synergy, right? So it also doesn't mean that you should just quit everything because you're not great at every part of that aspect. Just think about which part of it you are great at. Okay, so the next way to identify your strengths is, what are some things that you do and the time seems to fly by? So what are some things that you typically do that when you do, like the time flies by? It's like you close your eyes and you wake up and it's 4:00 and you're like, oh my God, I haven't eaten yet, right? I'll get that message from Kurt every once in a while. Like he's like, hey, like I haven't eaten. It's like dinner time. And it's because when you get into that zone where you're like when I do this thing, it's like, I don't want to stop because like I'm in a flow. And so that might be something that is related to your strengths. And then the second or the third one is, what do other people say are your greatest strengths and attributes? So if I were to have a conversation with somebody you deeply respected, somebody like close to you, what would they say are your greatest strengths and attributes? Kurt says he hasn't eaten yet. That reminds him. So what are some of those greatest strengths and attributes? So I want to hear in the chat, guys, I want to hear, what are things that people ask you about all the time that you're like, oh, this is so easy. Why don't people get it? Second thing is, what are some things that you do that makes the time seem to fly by? I want to hear about that in the chat. And number 3 is, what do others say are your greatest strengths and attributes? I want to hear an answer to one of those questions. What comes up for you guys? Because I really want to tap into that, tap into your strengths. All right. Now, while you guys are doing that, I'm going to ask you the next question. This one is going to be for you.
Okay.
Are you ready? Okay. How can you overcome the fear of ignoring weaknesses? Because I got to tell you, like, there's still even fear for me of like, if I ignore this, like, what's going to happen? Like the whole business and everything's going to fall apart, all that kind of stuff. So can you help people with like, how can they overcome the fear of just ignoring their weaknesses?
Well, you don't have to ignore your weaknesses.
Mhm.
And then, I mean, we touched on that a little bit, where it's not your central focus. It's more of, hey, you recognize that this is a weakness, and then you kind of, figure out whether or not that's something that you want to develop a little further. But it's really mainly focusing on your strengths, but you don't have to completely ignore your weaknesses.
100%. I'm actually going to grab a video for you guys, and I'm going to type it into the stream, the chat. This is a video that Kurt and I did. Talks about how to become a business multiplier. One of the things that that I think about is like, there's a lot of people that we can connect with that make you, it's either a plus or a minus when you add them to your team. Maybe they add a little bit, maybe they take a little bit away. But when you find somebody who's like a multiplier, somebody like Kurt, somebody who's strong where you're weak and weak where you're strong, that is the most beautiful synergy in the whole wide world, because you get to both meet each other where you both need to be and play within your strength zones. Like, I see a lot of people who connect with people who have the same strengths as them, and that is a complete waste of time. I mean, if you are the visionary and you're great at visioning, and then somebody else comes on and they're great at visioning, and you have nobody to put the details together, you guys are going to have like an amazing conversation and nothing's going to get done, right? So it's finding, where are these synergies, right? So instead of ignoring your weaknesses, ask yourself, like, who are some people that this is their strength zone, right? How can I find someone? Where can I find someone that will actually be a beautiful, like fill this gap for me, so that I can have the level of success that I want, right? So one of the things that came up for me is, I really love coaching. I really love details. I really love teaching and facilitating. And that's why Josh and I are such great, like, together, because he likes the forward facing stuff. He likes sales. He loves marketing. He also does love coaching, but there's other pieces of the puzzle that, like, where we complement each other, because I don't want to have to be the person who does all the marketing piece of it. I don't necessarily mind the sales part, but I don't really love the marketing piece, but he loves it and he crushes it. And he has like systems around it. And that's like what he eats, breathes, and sleeps. Like I do coaching, right? And so when we work together, we actually become twice, 100 times probably more powerful. And then we get a Kurt, and then we are 10,000 times more powerful. And it's this thing where it just keeps making you a multiplier instead of like a plus or minus. That video that I just shared with there is how to attract and find a multiplier. So if you want to find a Kurt because he's currently unavailable, please leave a message at the tone, beep. But if you want to find your version of Kurt, definitely check that out, because I got an opportunity to meet him or be with him live and ask him questions like, what kind of like would attract somebody like him? How would they want to be approached? So many different powerful questions that he shared with us, so you can find your version of Kurt. All right. Next one is, how does understanding and applying the strengths of each of your team members contribute to the overall success of a business? Now, I think, I mean, you can answer this one. I mean, I can answer it too, because I kind of answer it. And that is like, when you have a team, like right now, maybe you're just by yourself, right? And you're just having to focus on some of your weaknesses because like you need to do those things, right? As quickly as you can, find somebody who can help you in that area. It doesn't have to be you have to pay them with money. They could also be little humans called kids. They could also be your significant other who really wants you to succeed in business, right? It could be your friends, your family, your kids, whatever, right? It could be you trade services, and maybe your coach and somebody else is a marketing specialist and you coach them and they trade you for marketing. There's so many infinite number of ways. At some point, you are going to hopefully get a team and I'll, pay them for it. But in the beginning, just getting started, like that is a really great opportunity, because there's other people who love to do those things and hate to do the things that you do, right? And just finding somebody that can connect with and then elevate is just a game changer, because as you grow and you keep filling in those gaps, you'll get to the point where there's no gaps to be filled in. And it's beautiful when business is in that place, because, there's no place but up.
Yes.
And you're doing the things you love and you're not forcing the things you hate, right? It's just such an awesome place to be in.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay. Last one is, what is one piece of advice you would give to viewers who are struggling to identify or lean into their strengths in their business endeavors? So based off of today, we talked a lot about stuff. Like, if you could boil it down to like one piece of advice that you want to make sure that people take away from this, what would be that piece of advice? I'm gonna make you answer this one.
So I know you have some bullet points here, but I don't really understand that. But I think that the whole thing about the focus, right? Because the energy and time that we put into things is what we're going to what we're going to produce. So if we're constantly focusing on our weaknesses, then that's going to produce like some negative energy and a lot of wasted time. So I think that the best thing is to understand that that doesn't have to be your focus. And I think it's really exciting and motivating to understand what your strengths are so that you can focus on that. I know that Susie
Yeah, I was going to say that.
talked about this here where, people were asking her for advice, and she says she got lost in public speaking. A lot of people are not good at public speaking, and she found that that's what she loves. So leaning into that is really important.
Yeah, I when I think of Susie, I think of somebody who has so much amazing, incredible experience through the experiences that she had through her lifetime, that there's people out there, younger people, who would like love to sit down and have a conversation on like, how can I do that? Like, I'm totally nervous. Like, what do I do? What do I say? And there is such a like right now an untapped market of people who are like have gone through, created a lot of experiences and growth and gone through struggles. And on the other end came out the other side that younger people are actually really hungry for, right? I don't know why, but like right now, personal growth, even in younger people, is such an important piece. I mean, if you look at all of our videos, the ones that are getting the most like engagement has to do with a younger audience wanting to learn how to grow faster, how to grow bigger, how to do it on autopilot, how to like make their life easier, right? And they know that it's the process through personal growth in order to get them there. And it's just a different time. Like, I don't remember when I was growing up, like people were like, oh my God, I got to get into personal growth. No, they were all looking for the how-tos, the like microwave kind of like results, right? And like Teresa was saying, is like when you are able to focus on the right things, you're going to actually produce more, not only for yourself, but also for the world, because you're tapping into your strengths rather than your weaknesses. Now, on that note, one of the things that I have realized is my strength, and this is something that you might find this too, is you might find there's some people look at you in terms of like a strength that you have, and you pretty much downplay it and say, no, that's not a strength I have. I'm not really good at that, right?
Yeah.
For me, that is actually sales. So I have been approached by numerous businesses who have come in and asked me to start to run their sales team. They're like, Mark, I don't know how you were able to go from this amount. It was 40,000 to 200,000 to up to 400,000. Like, how were you able to do a lot of the sales that you do? And the reason why is because I don't do sales like most people do. I do sales a little differently. I do it in the realm of being able to find out what people's problems are and being able to help them solve those problems, whether it's my program or not. Now, there's a very specific structure that I go through. And I didn't even realize this until I kept getting asked and asked and asked and asked. But I was like, you know what? So many people are asking me, how can they make more sales? How can they make their first sale? How can they expand? How can they grow up to this? I'm like, I need to create something for this, right? So I actually started to work on putting together a program. It was going to be a one-on-one program where I can help personalize some of the scripts, some of the structures I use, some of the mindset pieces I think about beforehand, all of those things, when to say it, when not to say it, when to ask questions, when not to ask questions. And as I was putting this together, I realized that having conversations with a lot of our people in the inner circle, so many people struggle with this. And honestly, I was like, I don't feel right even putting together a program, charging $2,000 for it, and just only helping a few people. I got to do whatever I can to help as many people as possible, because I really do feel that you guys have programs and products that literally will change the world forever. And there was just something tugging to me of like, no, Mark, you have to make this more available to more people, as many as you possibly can, while also putting some skin in the game. Because here's the truth. You can find as much free training anywhere on the internet, but if you don't pay attention. And so one of the things that I was thinking about is like, I need to make this something where not only will they have a blueprint to follow, but it will be something that they will actually take action on. And so what I've decided to do is we put together a special sales training for next weekend. It's next weekend on the 6th at our normal YouTube time. This one is only going to be on Zoom, and it is only going to be for our inner circle. Now, if you're not a part of the inner circle, it's a $10 a month YouTube membership. You can click on the join button below once you're done this, just to see like what is entailed. Basically, you get 2 calls with me and Teresa per month here, tackling things around building a business you love, connecting with your family, and making sure that your health is always on point. But as a part of that, you're going to get this free, not free, but it's going to be a Zoom call that we're doing next week where literally I'm going to be on your sales team for a day. I asked myself, Mark, if you were to sit down and have a conversation with somebody, what would be the most important things you would want to teach them? What would they need to know? What mindset shifts would they have to make? And what strategies and scripts would you share with them to help them be able to make a bigger impact when it comes to the sales? And that's what we've been doing. We've actually been working on this for about 2 weeks. We finally completed it yesterday with all of the scripts and everything that we're going to actually have coming with as a part of this. And so for anybody who is in the inner circle, you're going to get access to this. If you are in the inner circle, you can go to YouTube and click on the membership tab. It'll have a link there in the beginning, which shows you how to get registered for the Zoom call. If you're not in the inner circle, and by the way, inner circle is one of those programs where if you decide that you're going to join it and then you want to cancel afterwards, I'm totally fine with it. There's no minimums or anything like that, but it's going to require you to jump in for $10. And here's what I have to say is like, if this changed the way that you did sales forever and you made one sale, would it be worth that $10? So if that answer is hell yes, it would be, definitely click the button below. It's the join button. After you get done here, it'll share with you how the program works. You'll get access into our app, but most importantly, sign up for that Zoom call. I'll leave you that link inside of the membership area as well as inside of our app so that you can join us next weekend. It'll probably be about a 2-hour call because I literally have some things that I need to walk you through, some mindset shifts, some scripts, how to use it, when to say it, when to not say it. So many beautiful things is going to be happening next weekend. So this is one of those things too, guys, for you. I want you to look at this from this perspective too, is sometimes people come to you and they ask you to do things, or they ask you about, hey, could you do this for me? And sometimes those things are like, no, I'm not. Like, do you know how long I was telling myself I'm not good at sales? And when companies come to me and say, hey, can you teach my sales team? I'm like, what? I'm not good at sales. Why would I want to? It's one of those things where when people keep coming to you and asking you about it, that means that might be your strength zone. So it might be something for you to lean into, because if you do, and I'm thankful that I actually did this, I can see the impact that even just being to this one call will make in somebody's business, but really in their life, if I give them all these strategies and we create a plan around how to go out and to implement it, which is what we're going to be doing next weekend. So if you're not a part of the inner circle, definitely grab it. And I look forward to seeing all of you guys then. All right, let's pick a card. Do we have a card?
Oh.
All right, so every week at the end of our conversations, we pick a card from the deck. We're going to see what comes out. Not that one.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm gonna try that one.
Here's the question. All right. What do you think is cool about being a grown-up?
This might be a good thing for
Kids.
conversation with
Yeah.
you.
What do you guys think is cool about being a grown-up? I probably would have to defer this to Teresa because I am not a grown-up. I think I'm like, I think I'm a kid.
That's why
I'm
we
a
get
kid
along
trapped
so well.
in a. So what is cool about being a grown-up?
I think it's just being on these calls and just going through kind of like self-discovery and, just personal growth.
I don't
think
know.
That's pretty cool.
I kind of think like, I mean, I guess it is the cool part about being a grown-up, but like, I remember kids, like I remember
Sorry,
kids.
Kurt.
Kurt says I can sit as close to the TV as I want.
I love that.
100%, or cross your eyes and the wind's blowing. Like
you'll be fine.
Your eyes might be stuck there. I think what's cool is that that like when kids, I remember kids in school and they were pretty mean and they're pretty harsh and they were pretty aggressive. And I feel like being an adult gives me a little bit more of I guess control over the environment, the people that I spend my time with, right? Because it was very traumatic having kids saying things about you or the way you looked or whatever, all that great kind of stuff, peer pressure,
all the stuff you have to deal with later on.
100%. So I would say like the fun part of being a grown up is I could decide where the hell I want to go and when I don't want to go, or who I hang out with and who I don't want to hang out with. Yeah. So I want to hang out with you, by the way. Okay. All right, guys. Have an incredible weekend. Have an incredible Easter, by the way. Happy Easter, team. And then we look forward to seeing you guys on next weekend's sales camp.
Yeah,
Bootcamp.
It's going to be amazing.
It's going to be powerful. Yeah. It's going to be powerful. Okay. You guys have a great week. We'll see you real soon. All right. Bye, everybody. Bye. Keep leading from the front.